Have you ever wondered what it's like when a retired detective's instincts kick in during what should be a quiet retirement? Well, my Uncle Frank just turned 68, spent 35 years working homicide in Chicago, and he thought his days of chasing down mysteries were over. He was wrong, dead wrong. What happened to him 3 months ago will make you question everything you think you know about retirement, intuition, and whether some people are just born to solve puzzles that others can't even see. This isn't just another story about an old cop who can't let go. This is about how decades of training can save lives in the most unexpected ways. I'm talking about a Tuesday morning that started with Uncle Frank walking his dog and ended with him preventing what could have been a tragedy. But here's the thing that'll blow your mind. It wasn't what he saw that made the difference. It was what he didn't see. And that distinction might just change how you look at the world around you. See, Uncle Frank has this thing he calls his detective radar. After 35 years of walking into crime scenes, interviewing suspects, and piecing together puzzles that would make most people's heads spin, he's developed this sixth sense. It's like his brain never really retired, even though his badge did. Now, before I dive into what happened that Tuesday, you need to understand something about Uncle Frank. This guy isn't your typical retiree. While most 68-year-olds are worried about their golf swing or complaining about kids these days, Uncle Frank still notices everything. And I mean everything. He'll tell you the license plate of a car that passed by 3 blocks ago, describe the nervous tick of a cashier at the grocery store, and somehow remember the exact conversation he overheard between 2 strangers at a coffee shop last week. My aunt used to joke that living with him was like being married to a human security camera. But what she didn't realize, and what none of us really understood until that Tuesday, was that this hyper-awareness wasn't just a quirky habit. It was a survival mechanism that had been fine-tuned over decades of police work. The morning started like any other. Uncle Frank was walking Sherlock. Yes, he actually named his German Shepherd after the famous detective, because of course he did, through Riverside Park. This is his daily routine. Same route, same time, 7:30 a.m. sharp. He knows every regular jogger, every dog walker, every bench warmer in that park. But something was different that morning. And this is where it gets interesting. Most people would have walked right past without noticing anything unusual. In fact, dozens of people did exactly that. But Uncle Frank's trained eye picked up on something that made his detective instincts go into overdrive. There was a woman, mid-30s, sitting on a bench that faced the playground. Nothing weird about that, right? People sit on benches all the time. But here's what Uncle Frank noticed that everyone else missed. She had been sitting there for over an hour. He knew this because he had seen her there during his earlier walk to the corner store. She wasn't reading a book, wasn't on her phone, wasn't eating breakfast. She was just sitting there, staring at the playground where about a dozen kids were playing before school. Now, most people would think, so what? Maybe she's just enjoying watching kids play. But Uncle Frank's brain immediately started cataloging details. No purse, no coffee cup, no newspaper, no visible reason to be there. And most importantly, no child that appeared to belong to her. The playground was busy with the usual morning crowd. Parents dropping off kids at the adjacent daycare, nannies supervising their charges, grandparents getting in some quality time before the day got too hot. But this woman didn't fit any of those categories. Now, Uncle Frank did what any good detective would do. He observed. He positioned himself at a nearby bench where he could watch both the woman and the playground without being obvious about it. Sherlock, bless his heart, seemed to sense something was up too. The dog kept looking between Uncle Frank and the woman, as if he was trying to figure out what had his human so focused. For 20 minutes, Uncle Frank watched. The woman never moved. She never interacted with anyone. She just sat there, her eyes following the children as they played. But it wasn't the casual observation of someone who enjoys watching kids have fun. Uncle Frank described it as predatory, calculating, like she was studying them. Then something happened that made Uncle Frank's blood run cold. A little girl, maybe 6 years old, wandered away from the main group of kids. She was chasing a butterfly, completely oblivious to the fact that she was moving further and further from safety. And the woman on the bench? She stood up. Now, Uncle Frank will tell you that in 35 years of police work, he learned to trust his gut, and his gut was screaming that something was very wrong. The woman started walking toward the little girl, but she was doing it in a way that seemed casual, almost accidental, like she just happened to be walking in that direction. But Uncle Frank knew better. He could see the intention in her movements, the way she was positioning herself to intercept the child without drawing attention from the other adults in the area. This wasn't coincidence. This was predatory behavior. What happened next shows you exactly why Uncle Frank's 35 years of experience made all the difference. Instead of running over and potentially creating a scene that might spook the woman into running, he made a strategic decision. He called out to the little girl, "Hey, sweetie, your butterfly friend flew over here by the fountain." The little girl immediately changed direction and ran toward Uncle Frank and the fountain, putting distance between herself and the woman. At the same time, Uncle Frank positioned himself so that he was between the woman and the child, all while making it look completely natural. The woman froze. She stood there for a moment, clearly trying to decide what to do next. Uncle Frank made eye contact with her and gave her a friendly nod, the kind of acknowledgement you'd give to any stranger in a park. But he also made sure she could see that he was watching her, that he had noticed her, that she was no longer invisible. That's when she left, quickly, without looking back. Uncle Frank immediately went to find the little girl's parents, who were chatting with other parents near the playground equipment. They had no idea their daughter had wandered off. When Uncle Frank explained what had happened, the mother went pale. The father immediately called the police. But here's the thing that makes this story even more incredible. When the police arrived and Uncle Frank described the woman, it matched the description of someone they had been looking for in connection with 3 attempted child abductions in the area over the past month. 3 different parks, 3 different times, but the same pattern. A woman who would sit and observe children, then approach them when they were separated from their parents. The officers told Uncle Frank that if he hadn't been there, if he hadn't noticed what everyone else missed, they might have had their first successful abduction. That little girl might have become another statistic, another missing child poster, another family's worst nightmare. But Uncle Frank's story doesn't end there, because what happened next reveals something even more important about the power of experience and intuition. The police asked Uncle Frank if he would be willing to help them set up surveillance in the other parks where the woman had been spotted. They wanted to catch her before she tried again, and Uncle Frank, despite being officially retired, despite having earned his peaceful golden years, didn't hesitate to say yes. For the next 2 weeks, Uncle Frank and Sherlock became unofficial park patrol. They would rotate between the 3 parks, always at different times, always looking like they were just out for a casual walk. But Uncle Frank was working. His detective brain was fully engaged, cataloging faces, noting patterns, watching for anything that seemed out of place. On day 12, she showed up again. Different park, same behavior. Sitting on a bench, watching children, waiting for an opportunity. But this time, Uncle Frank was ready. He had a direct line to the police surveillance team, and within minutes they had her surrounded. When they arrested her, they found detailed notes about the children she had been watching. Names, descriptions, daily routines. She had been planning this for weeks. Uncle Frank's intervention hadn't just prevented one abduction, it had prevented multiple ones. The woman was eventually charged with attempted kidnapping, stalking, and conspiracy to commit child abduction. She pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 8 years in prison. But more importantly, at least in Uncle Frank's mind, she was off the streets and couldn't hurt any children. The story made local news, and Uncle Frank became something of a neighborhood hero. But when reporters asked him how he knew to be suspicious of the woman, his answer was simple. 35 years of police work teaches you to notice what doesn't belong. This is where Uncle Frank's story becomes a lesson for all of us. See, most people go through life on autopilot. They see what they expect to see. They notice what's obvious. And they miss the subtle signs that something might be wrong. But Uncle Frank's training taught him to look deeper, to question what seems normal, to trust his instincts when something feels off. In the months since the arrest, Uncle Frank has become an informal consultant for the local police department. They call him when they have cases that need fresh eyes, when they're stuck on a puzzle that requires someone with his particular kind of experience. He's helped solve 2 cold cases and assisted in 3 ongoing investigations. But more than that, he's started teaching. Uncle Frank now gives talks at community centers, schools, and parent groups about situational awareness and personal safety. He teaches people how to notice what he noticed, how to trust their instincts, how to be the person who sees what others miss. One of the things Uncle Frank always emphasizes in his talks is that being observant isn't about being paranoid. It's about being present. It's about paying attention to your surroundings, noticing when things don't fit the pattern, and trusting your gut when something feels wrong. He tells parents to teach their children about stranger danger, but he also tells them to teach their children to be observers, to notice the adults around them, to recognize when someone is paying too much attention to them, to understand that not every friendly stranger has good intentions. Uncle Frank's experience has also changed how our entire family thinks about safety and awareness. His grandchildren, my cousin's kids, are some of the most observant young people you'll ever meet. They notice things that other kids their age would never pick up on, not because they're scared or paranoid, but because Uncle Frank has taught them that being aware of your surroundings is just smart. The ripple effects of that Tuesday morning continue to spread. The parents in the neighborhood are more vigilant. The police have implemented new patrol patterns in the parks. The daycare center has updated their security protocols. And Uncle Frank? He's busier in retirement than he ever was as an active detective. But here's what I think is the most important part of Uncle Frank's story. It's not just about preventing a crime or catching a criminal. It's about the value of experience, the power of paying attention, and the importance of trusting your instincts. We live in a world where we're constantly distracted. We're looking at our phones, listening to podcasts, thinking about our to-do lists. We're physically present, but mentally somewhere else. Uncle Frank's story is a reminder that sometimes the most important thing you can do is simply be aware of what's happening around you. Think about it. How many times have you walked through a park, a mall, a neighborhood, and really noticed what was happening? How many times have you made eye contact with the other people around you? How many times have you trusted that little voice in your head that says something isn't quite right? Uncle Frank's 35 years of detective work gave him advantages that most of us don't have. He knows how to read body language, how to spot suspicious behavior, how to piece together patterns that others might miss. But the basic skill, the ability to observe and trust your instincts, that's something all of us can develop. Since Uncle Frank's story became known in our community, there have been at least 6 other incidents where regular citizens noticed something suspicious and alerted authorities. A teenager who noticed a man following women in a shopping mall. A mother who realized that the maintenance worker in her apartment complex wasn't actually supposed to be there. A jogger who noticed someone trying car door handles in a parking lot. These people weren't trained detectives. They were just ordinary citizens who had learned to pay attention to their surroundings and trust their instincts. They had learned from Uncle Frank's example that being observant isn't about being a hero. It's about being a responsible member of your community. The woman who was arrested thanks to Uncle Frank's vigilance is now serving her sentence. But the impact of what he did goes far beyond just stopping one criminal. He reminded all of us that we have the power to make our communities safer simply by being present, being aware, and being willing to act when something doesn't feel right. Uncle Frank is still walking Sherlock in Riverside Park every morning at 7:30 a.m. He still notices everything, still catalogs details, still trusts his instincts. But now he's not just a retired detective walking his dog. He's a guardian of his community, a teacher of awareness, and a reminder that sometimes the most important mysteries are the ones happening right in front of us. The next time you're out in public, take a moment to really look around. Notice the people, the patterns, the things that seem normal and the things that don't. Trust your instincts if something feels off. You might not have Uncle Frank's 35 years of detective experience, but you have something just as valuable, the ability to care about the safety of others and the power to make a difference. Because you never know when your moment of awareness might prevent someone else's tragedy. And that's a responsibility and an opportunity that we all share.